Yvette Cooper, who is the Home Secretary, she is saying that extreme misogyny will be treated as terrorism for the first time under government plans to combat the radicalisation of young men online. She's ordered a review of Britain's counter-terrorism strategy to urgently address gaps in the government's stance and to look at tackling violence against women and girls in the same way as Islamist and far-right extremism, amid fears that current Home Office guidance is too narrow. Well, let's ask the opinion of Aisha Ali-Khan. She's a human rights and women's rights campaigner. Aisha, thank you for joining me this afternoon. What do you make of this proposal from Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary?
Right, so we've been talking about something like this for the last, 4 or 5 years now. And every time this kind of idea comes to the table and we discuss it, we get comments like the comment you just read out saying, violence against women and that kind of domestic abuse should not fall under the category of terrorism. And I think what we've definitely seen has been a massive increase in young people being radicalised online, especially young men. And these men have been, they're unhappy, they can't get a relationship, and they fall under the category of incels, which stands for involuntary celibate. Basically,
so these are young men who can't get a relationship. They are incels, involuntary celibates, as you say, and they hate women as a result of this, and they fall into, whether they fall into or go there voluntarily, we can talk about in a second, but they're certainly very, very misogynistic and sometimes violently misogynistic. I wonder what
that's what it is too. These are men who would love to have a relationship with women, and for some reason they can't, and then they end up blaming not just women, but not just a particular woman, but all women, and the rise of feminism and so on. So they feel very hard done by, very angry, very upset, and those feelings are turning into basically towards violence to punish these women, to punish all women, and that's something that Yvette Cooper and obviously previously we've spoken to the sort of people around this legislation as well, how to tackle this. So it's been formally. Well, we hope that it's going to be formally recognised in the next couple of months, and steps are going to be taken to basically enshrine this in law.
Can I just ask you what you think radicalisation means? Because I think we know what it means, but in this context, I just want you to explain what your view of being radicalised is, how it actually works, and what the kind of thoughts would be of someone who is radicalised in comparison to someone who is just sexist or misogynist, just someone on the street, someone in the workplace who says and does silly, stupid things that they shouldn't do and are unacceptable in society, but it's not terrorism per se.
So if we look at the definition of radicalisation under the current terror laws, the idea is that somebody is open to committing a violent act, and their mindset has been slowly but surely changed from, like you said, making harmless comments or sort of posting harmless memes and so on, to actually wanting to take physical action in terms of causing terror or causing harm to somebody. And I think that the reason why these are it's becoming more and more of an issue is because we've got people like Andrew Tate and other influencers that are using the sort of feelings of anger and rejection and frustration amongst these young men, and they're basically capitalizing on these. They're monetizing misogyny, they're monetizing these feelings of anger and just kind of taking advantage, in my opinion, of young men who are clearly unhappy, they're upset, and they're basically turning these young men who would have just been able to speak out to their friends and so on. At some point now, they've got this massive subculture online. They can log on and talk to these other men, other people that they may never have met in real life, and they may never meet. And they can actually share horrible fantasies, and it's actually normalizing those types of attitudes towards women. And then obviously at some point a young person, for them it might not be enough, so they want to take something steps in real life, and they want to actually live out some of these horrible fantasies. And some of the messages I've read, and by the way, Peter, sorry, I should have also added, I'm actually a classroom teacher as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Young disadvantaged and disenfranchised young men for the last 4 years, and I have actually had conversations face to face with these young people, and it's not just young young boys feeling unhappy about sort of, say, the economy, for example, the fact that there's no jobs, there's no sort of possibilities for them when they leave school. The chances of them getting good GCSEs are very low as well. So these are all issues that combine together.
So you're actually, let me just get into that a little bit, Aisha, because of course the extreme end of this is the terrorism and what you're saying should be the law. But actually you're at the sort of the original bit of it, the start. I said, well, hopefully not the start, but hopefully you're curbing it. But there are many young men you're dealing with on a daily basis who are perhaps at risk of this, or at risk of these sorts of being not necessarily radicalised, but certainly influenced by these kinds of videos.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, these young men are being young boys. Sorry, let's just start with. They're being exposed to all types of very casual misogyny. They're playing games, and characters that are female that are being run over. They're being beaten up. They're being stamped upon, and then they see it in their home lives. They see it amongst their friends. They see it in potential relationships that are playing out in front of them, and there's nobody to challenge these types of ideas, and that's something that I feel really strongly about as a teacher. As soon as there's some kind of comment that's been made, oh, we don't want to pick up our plates because it's not our job, it's a girl's job. These are the types of comments that it starts from.
Right.
And you know, I speak to young girls, I teach young girls as well, and the kind of comments that they have to put up with, comments about their bodies, comments about their looks, comments about whether somebody would want to sleep with them. And these are teenage girls, they're like 12, 13, 14, and they don't have the tools or the skills to basically stand up for themselves. They are effectively bullied by these young boys who are also similar in ages as well. And I think then that snowballs. And obviously going back to my previous point, when you log online and you have other people that are writing similar things and sharing similar views, it's normalized, it's internalized, and it's really difficult to then, as a young adult, after having all these kinds of views.
Yes. Is it all coming? I mean, you're seeing young people, is it all, and you know about the very radical side of it as well. Is it all coming from men? It's all coming from young men, or are there some young women or older women who are doing this as well? Or, I mean, what sort of proportion would you say?
I think what I've seen is that obviously these are young men that are basically expressing themselves, but they're helped by other young women and other women as well. So if they have a very patriarchal, very traditional or conservative upbringing, they will have seen that type of attitude, the types of attitudes where women are there to serve the men, women are there to make the men happy and to make sure that they're looked after, and it's a woman's job. Whereas men, effectively boys as well, can do what they want. There's no accountability, there's no responsibility, and it's absolutely perfectly fine. And I speak as a Pakistani Muslim woman from a Punjabi background, very patriarchal. So I have seen this growing up amongst my own family members, amongst the
how have you challenged it in your own community, or Aisha, what have you tried to do?
Well, number one, I was very lucky that I was able to get an education, because so many of my friends, people sort of around my age, when I talk to people and I say, well, most of my friends got married at 15 and 16, and then they became housewives. Some weren't even allowed to go and finish their GCSEs and get qualifications and able to support themselves. And that was from growing up in the 90s in the UK, and then obviously I've gone to university. I was one of the first female to drive, amongst my community. And these are the little things that I look back on, and I think, gosh, we have come a massive way from back, those years. But in some ways, not so much. And that still makes me very upset, which is why I speak out about it a lot. And I try to show women that are empowered, that have an education, that have good jobs, that are able to make their own decisions. We shouldn't be afraid of these women. We shouldn't be trying to pull them down or try to criticize them or see them as an anomaly, because we're not. And
have you had pushback from within your own community?
I think I've been very lucky because I'm very vocal and I'm able to stand up for myself. But I became divorced 16 years ago, which was a big thing at the time. I mean, now it's like I said, it's very normal. Times have definitely changed, and the mindset that some people, if they're unhappy in a marriage and they want to leave, it's a lot easier now than it was when I was young. When it was for me when I was in my 20s. So I feel that in some aspects, speaking from obviously Pakistani person, we have definitely improved. But then stepping back and looking at the wider society as a teacher that works in a multicultural school in a multicultural city as well, and I see this kind of misogyny from there is no label. You cannot just say, oh, a person from that background is going to susceptible or
and
more.
you see it from all backgrounds, presumably.
I see it from every side, and I see it from English boys, I see it from black boys, I see it from Pakistani, from Bangladeshis, from Indians. So there isn't just one type. So I think for me, then that makes me think, okay, what is going on in our wider society where this is something that is just constantly carrying on? And now I look back and I think, look forward, and I just think, I've had to fight this for, the last 20, 30 years of my life. Does this mean the next generation of young women and young girls, are they going to have to continue fighting this? This is why we need some legislation in place to tackle what's going on and to protect women and girls. That's the main objective of it all, isn't it?